2, 1, go! Alrighty, this is 180 milliseconds too late, the SSA Rocket League podcast, and it promises to be an epic one tonight. We got Johnnyboi, and we're going to be talking a little bit about him, his history, and how he got involved in all of this, and why he's doing what he's doing right now. And then we'll get into a little bit more relevance for SSA, what happened in MENA, how MENA has become close to the edge of glory. They had a fantastic season, and by all indications, we'll have another one. This one coming. So how this is going to work is we'll have the convo, and we're kind of. I'm not going to get too involved with chat, but if you have questions, put them in. We've got some of our mods doing work. Dragetta and Gore. Gore is keeping track of all the questions, and he'll get those to me so we can have a Q&A, a little bit of a Q&A at the end. And then we've got Dragetta, who's keeping track of all the follows and subs so we can shout them out at the end. So with all of that said, and without further ado, let's get going. Johnnyboi, welcome.
Hey, thank you. How's it going?
Pretty fabulous. We're getting into the chaos times now of the new season rolling out, which quite frankly is still very new to SSA. We're completed our first season, and there was a lot of chaos going in and throughout, and the start is sort of no different. So we're enjoying being part of the mix. So from that point of view, we're all very excited. And from your end, you're all prepped, ready, guns loaded for the season.
Yeah, as always. I mean, always ready, but excited to do it all again. This is going to be kind of like a similar season to last, I suppose, looking at how close the announcement was to the announcement for last season. So last season was a good season. So if we're going to get a repeat of a good season, then that's got to be good.
At the very minimum, last season, hopefully a notch or two above. So, well, let's start with you. I became familiar with you. I mean, I've played Rocket League for a very long time, but only got involved sort of in content type stuff and the broader community about 3 years ago. And as it happened, right as I was getting involved, Snowy and Zebra had made their way to the UK to see what they could make happen there. And one of the many things that happened was Snowy went onto your stream, and that was a massive deal for all of us here back then. And he did okay. Well, listen, Snowy being Snowy, he was a little irritated with the result, but that was our introduction, my introduction to Johnnyboi. But I'd like us to go back a little bit and hear how you started, what you started doing, what your plans were, and how it evolved. And just to lay the groundwork for that, I went as far back as I could on your YouTube channel.
Okay.
It was a lot of scrolling. And the first video I found, and I don't know if it was the first video you ever uploaded or if it's just the one that's there now, was from 6 years ago. It was a short clip, a very young, fresh-faced looking Johnnyboi, but but an even younger 11 or 12-year-old sounding scrub killer. Yep. And
that is indeed, that's my first video.
Really?
Yeah, you're looking at, if you found that is my first video I uploaded. I know a lot of YouTubers, when their channel grows, they like to delete all the videos that have their previous level of viewership just to make themselves look good. So their first video is like 1 million views. You're like, wow, this guy really was amazing from day one. No, I just left all my videos up so you can go all the way back to the start. Some of them are not the best in terms of quality. And yeah, the casting videos, I mean, I've been doing this for 6 years now. So yeah, I like to think I've gotten a little bit better, but that does mean that if you watch my old casting, it's probably going to be horrendous. But for the time, it held up. So yeah, Rocket League's come a long way. But yeah, Scrub Killer, he was 12 at that point.
Wow.
And he was too young to stream on Twitch himself. So what he would do is he would just go around stream sniping people or trolling in their Twitch chats. Okay. And it was actually his dad that found my channel. He said, Kyle, or Scrub's name, he said, Kyle, you've got to check out this guy. He's a Scottish streamer. Because not many Scottish people in esports, so he tuned in. He's like, wow, this guy's terrible. I need to help him out. I need to carry him in ranked. So yeah, we're just playing some ranked games. Back then, when you played ranked with a really high rated player, and you're a low rated player, you'd run into players in between your
Yes.
ranks. It's not the same as it
Okay.
is now. So it used to be good. It was good games. You know,
Mm.
if you're queuing with a 2K player and you're like 1500, you'd just get two players who are 1750, and it would be a close game almost every time. Like
Wow.
matchmaking would give you a close game. But yeah, they changed it, I think, to try and combat boosting or something.
Yes.
I don't really like it because it means that you can't play with people in ranked that are not the same rank as you, which kind of sucks.
Mm.
But yeah, that was the old days. That's what we were getting up to.
Well, if it makes any difference, your casting may or may not have been poorer, but the Rocket League was certainly poorer.
Oh, definitely.
I'm such a slow learner, and it frustrates me in so many ways because at my level of Rocket League right now, I would 6 years ago I was a Grand Champ 2, easy, but now it's a
Hmm.
struggle.
Yeah,
So,
Rocket League has developed for sure. You're not wrong.
and what was the and so what was your plan? I mean, you got onto you started streaming. Was it just to be a streamer? What was the initial plan, and how did it grow and evolve?
Well, my initial plan was streaming. Streaming is always something I was pretty interested in. I liked to, watch streams. I was very interested. I think that, when Twitch first came along, it was actually Justin TV, and I remember finding this site and thinking, this is so cool. People are just streaming their gameplay, and you can watch it just like you'd watch, sports on TV. We're literally watching some of the best players in the world here from their POV. I thought it was a really cool idea, so I always wanted to, try it, have that experience, I interact with people who swing by and chat. But my internet was always pretty rubbish, so I couldn't do it until the year that I started doing it with Rocket League. But yeah, I just did it out of interest. I was like, I kind of just want to do this as a hobby. And it developed into casting
Okay.
again because I kind of just wanted that content to exist. I was a big
Mm.
fan of 1v1 content and 1v1 casting videos in StarCraft 2 actually, because I used to play a lot of StarCraft 2 and I loved watching 1v1s because StarCraft 2 is a 1v1 game predominantly. And I was just really surprised that there was no content like that in Rocket League. So
Mm.
when I got the opportunity to cast, I think my first one that I casted was Scrub Killer Marky Duda. They happened to
Wow.
be doing a private match, or rather, I was playing, I think rank twos with Scrub, and then he said that he's gonna need to go because Marky's asked him for private ones, and he has to, the best player in the world at the time has asked you to play private ones. You got to do it.
You
I
you
said,
make
yeah,
a
for
plan,
sure,
yeah.
go for it. But then I was live streaming. My chat said, "Oh, you should spectate." So I asked if I could spectate. They said yeah. Then my chat told me to cast it, and I said, "Well, I'm not going to cast it like regular Rocket League casting." So at the time, regular Rocket League casting at that point was pretty much exclusively like hype and play-by-play, and I wasn't really
Yes.
too interested in that. I wanted to be more analytical. But yeah, that all ended up working in my favor. It wasn't planned. It was sort of just the way things worked. But yeah, it was very popular because it was just a niche. Nobody was
Mm.
streaming 1v1s. Nobody was casting the way that I wanted to, and yeah, I was just doing it as a hobby, so I think people could see I was just passionate about it, and I think that's why it blew up.
Well, I mean, that was the other thing I did notice on the YouTube channel, and you kind of answered that question: is that the 1v1 stuff was almost relatively immediate. I mean, you see it
Hmm.
very quickly, and certainly the casting stuff. And then, I mean, you mentioned League of Legends, so I mean, you were interested in multi titles. Right now, you're very much known in Rocket League. Was there a point where it became a focus for Rocket League?
I never really like looked to stream any other game. I mean, I'm kind
Okay.
of a one game person. When I play a game, I focus on it, and that's my game that I play. And at the time that I started streaming for fun, Rocket League was the game I was playing, so that was the game that I just would stream all the time. But yeah, I've played a lot of different titles in the past. I played a lot of World of Warcraft Arena back in the day. Played a lot of StarCraft 2. Yeah, League of Legends, Heroes of the Storm. But yeah, all every game that I would play, I'd be very interested in the esport attached to it as well. So yeah, I was a fan of those games. Took a lot of
Mm.
inspiration from certain people in those industries with my casting, but never have I been like trying to pursue, a casting uh, gig in another game. No, it's just been Rocket League. That's the number one question people ask me these days. Is like, are you, trying to diversify? Are you trying to be a caster in multiple games to cover more options? And I just always say no because I've got enough on the go between
Mm.
content and casting in Rocket League. There's and organizing tournaments occasionally. Like that's enough. I
Yeah.
I don't need to cast any other games. That's enough for me. Always has been.
And then I saw very early on as well, you were sort of taking RLCS VODs and sort of commentating or at least talking about it. Some of your early content is that. So clearly, I mean, you've just mentioned you had an interest in the esports side of it from very, very early on. And then when did the casting thing become? When does it move from hobby to I'm actually can make something of a living doing this?
The replay reviews were I think they came before. I before I realized I could do this stream thing full time. They were, again, I was interested in that kind of content and myself. If somebody else was doing it, I would probably have watched. But no one else was doing it, so I just did it myself. And yeah, they were pretty popular on Twitch. Weren't that popular on YouTube. I was just kind of testing the water there. Thought, well, I've got nothing else on my YouTube channel, might as well upload these. But yeah, that kind of content doesn't do that well on YouTube because YouTube's got too short of a attention span for replay reviews. These days, I think even Twitch has too short of an attention span for that to be good content. Like Twitch used to be a lot more like people, well, the Rocket League Twitch section, people would be more interested in that. But these days, I don't think it would work. They just want to see everything live. So that's why view parties do really well. But if you're looking back at replays, it won't do as well. It still does better on Twitch than YouTube. But yeah, I figured I could do this full time probably I think it must have been a couple of months after I got my sub button, because I got partnered. The old way through Twitch that you needed to get partnered was you needed to average 500 concurrent viewers for 3 months in a row. Wow. And once you've done that, then you could apply for partner and you would get it. If you average 500 viewers 3 months in a row, you could show that to Twitch and they'd give you partner. It's a lot more like there's a process now with affiliate, so I think it's better the way it's done now. But back then it was you needed to it was quite harsh. If you don't have 500 concurrent 3 months, nah, you can't get a sub button. But I got it through that, and then I think it was maybe 2 months after that, Twitch Prime became a thing. And when Twitch Prime became a thing, everybody's sub counts on the platform blew up. And I was like, wait a minute, I think I could actually do this full time now. So it became less of a hobby and more of a, okay, I'm going to put all of my focus into this and see how far it'll go.
This could be a thing, and a thing it certainly has, and you've certainly built an amazing platform, which has been very, very good for the game. And everything. So I have no background in esports. I'm an older guy who had a proper life and a proper job at one point.
A real job.
Yeah, exactly. and then found myself with this opportunity to kind of live out my teenage years at a later time. But the one thing I have noticed in the esports thing is everything is very ephemeral. It comes and it goes. Things change on a dime. We see it in our own scene here. The top team, the org, they split up. They've taken over the second place team. There isn't a single roster that resembles last season. And you hear so many stories, and there's unhappiness and there's tension and all of that sort of thing. So with all of that in mind, how do you view the future of what you're doing and how much life is in it? Is this something that can go on indefinitely, or are you already at a point of like thinking, okay, what is beyond this, or how does that square with you right now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, for most people in my role, well, I mean, I think most people would know me as a caster first. So most esport casters do try and spread their, skills between multiple games, like you said, so they can have something. If that one game fails, they've got something else to go to. But yeah, as a content creator, I'd say I'm more of a content creator than a caster historically. Okay. I'm just fully focused on Rocket League because I do believe in the game. I don't think it's got I think it's got a future, whether or not that's like a Rocket League 2 as was leaked from, I don't know, some job description, or whether it's just Rocket League as is. I definitely believe in the game. I'm passionate about it, so I'm just sticking to that. But yeah, who knows? I mean, you never really know. Casters, like casting and pro play and everything related to esports it's a very it's a very fickle thing, I suppose, because you see it every season. Like you mentioned, a player will just like last minute get removed from their team and they didn't see it coming, and they're upset, and the orgs get inflamed and all kinds of things like that. So yeah, it does happen, and you've got to, I guess, be ready for it mentally to happen. But I just try and like stay as active as possible with my own brand and my own Twitch, because I think the biggest mistake someone in my position could make is like, okay, I wasn't an RLCS caster for years. I didn't join until halfway through season 9, actually. Then I did. I got signed halfway through season 9 because COVID enabled international casters to be part of the broadcast without a visa. Now, if I, took that as like, okay, mission accomplished, now I'm going to stop streaming, I think that would be a mistake. Because yeah, it is fully like all the casters can live off their caster salaries. The Psionics do pay us well, but I think it would be a mistake to just rely fully on that and not, continue grinding, Twitch and YouTube. So that's what I'm personally looking to do.
And doing it well by all indications. All right, so let's transition over now. Your at some point, while watching Gamers 8, I mean, you received quite an ovation from the crowd there, who recognizing the role you've played in helping MENA to become, well, I mean, MENA was like sort of 2-3 years ago where I feel like SSA is now, sort of a little bit of a backwater town that, oh, cute, they play some Rocket League. And then, and when the transition came, it seemed to come very quickly, where suddenly there were these superstars coming out of there and they were these threatening teams. So I'd love you to take me through that story, how you got involved, where they were, things you've done, and how it came from there to where we are now.
Yeah, the Sunless Khan documentary about Sandrock Gaming is a really good watch. I'm sure most listeners might have heard about it, if not watched it. But that gives a good story as to the background of that team, which is very much like my background as well. Like we were kind of tied together, like myself and the Sandrock Gaming guys, because I was always just waiting for there to be a team. Like there were players, like Ahmad was the first player. I was like, this guy's legit. He's world class. But you need 2 more of him before he can really show it to the world. And then Khaled was the second guy, and then Senzo. So yeah, that's I think what all of the other regions need to try and do is just make a super team, just get the 3 best players on a team and get as good as you can, because it's so hard to compete. If you've got less of a player base to draw from, then you need a super team. You need like exactly what they did. Over in Middle East in order for it to be competitive.
And how did they? Okay, you mentioned Ahmed. How did he get as good as he did? Was he grinding on EU? Was it just getting good by himself where he was, or how was that? How much was playing in EU involved with that?
Yeah, he was grinding on EU, exactly. That sniped Scrub Killer a bunch. That's how I found out about him. He had a ridiculous name at the time, and he was a sniping Scrub, and he was winning games here and there. At that point, Scrub had a winning record against pretty much anybody except Fairy Peak in 1v1. So, but even if somebody could just take a game off him, it's impressive. Like he was that dominant. And Ahmad, with 120 ping was able to do it. So I was pretty baffled. Like that was the first time I'd seen somebody with that bad of a connection being competitive with one of the best in the world. So I knew from that point, I was like, this guy's 100% a ridiculously good player. He's world class, obviously, because you can't win against Scrub Kill at that point in 1v1 with 120 ping unless you're world class. So I knew from that moment, I was like, this guy's clearly got what it takes. But it took a long time from there. It was years actually.
When was that? Can you remember roughly what time period that was?
It would have been more than 4 years ago at this point, actually. Okay. When I first heard about Ahmad, he's real OG. Like him, Kaio, from South America, and Realize from Japan, they've been like around for 4 years plus, and they've been world class. They've been the best player in the region for that length of time, or one of the best players in the region for that length of time. So yeah, that I was aware of them through that. Just seeing them compete in ranked and on streams against high level EU players. That was how I knew if they could beat EU with a bad connection, then they must be world class.
And then did there come a time where you wanted, there was a thought process from your end that you wanted to be more involved in getting MENA noticed, getting this region to be more than it was, or campaigning for them? Or was it just you like what they're doing and you had them on your stream and you sort of showcased them that way?
It was, initially before I was running tournaments, I would just when I'm interested in a player, when I think that they deserve the spotlight, I'll offer them show matches. So that was like the initial thing. But yeah, when it comes to tournaments, I would just invite players who are who are the best. If they didn't deserve it, if I didn't think that they were the best or deserving of a spot in a tournament, I wouldn't just invite them as a token Middle East team or token Middle East player. They were never a token player. I always thought, nah, this guy's got a chance to win. Like when Khaled was in Salt Mine, he qualified to Salt Mine. He didn't get invited. He qualified and then he won it. When Sandrock were in the European Invitational, they were invited because it was an invitational. But I knew that they were going to be competitive. I thought they could do damage in their group. They got a tough group. So when I saw the group, I was like, oh, I don't know if we'll get out of that one, but I think they're going to be really, really competitive and definitely not finish last in their group. So yeah, if I thought they were just going to get destroyed, I wouldn't have. I was working within Civic at the time. I wouldn't have been like, yeah, let's get them in this tournament. I would have probably tried to come up with something that makes more sense, like them versus the European bubble teams. But no, I knew they were good enough to face the top teams, so we went for that instead. They were, I mean, to me at least, very obviously very, very good.
And what have been the factors? So you played a big role in bringing the region to the attention of the world. You've just in passing mentioned in Civic there, but so what have been the other factors in the rise of MENA from your perspective?
Oh, just the players. I mean, the players are the ones who deserve the most credit because they're the ones who are actually grinding to a ridiculous skill level with no RLCS to work towards. You talk about motivation. Some RLCS players struggle with motivation and they're on 6-figure contracts and in the RLCS every, other week. These guys were motivated to get good with none of that, nothing to really, no end goal in sight. So they're the ones who deserve the most credit, just the players for staying on the grind and getting good enough to deserve it. Me and in Civic gave them a platform. We in Civic supported them financially and gave them an org, and I used my platform to support them. But without the skill level, it wouldn't have worked. They had to be good. They're the ones who deserve the credit, I think.
All right. Well. Here's a question. As we were coming up to this, I was looking at a few things, and MENA. We talk about MENA, which is Middle East, North Africa, but in truth, it's kind of Saudi Arabia and a little bit of Dubai and a little bit of here and there. When we talk about SSA, Sub-Saharan Africa, it is really South Africa. And surprisingly, this tiny dot of a nation in the ocean, Reunion Island, which seems to be producing some fairly decent Rocket League players. But there's a similarity there. I mean, outside of Saudi Arabia, where is Rocket League?
I don't understand. I don't know how Saudi Arabia has produced so many good Rocket League players. All I can speak to is that I know that they work very hard. Their culture is they take their education very seriously, and they take their jobs very seriously. They just work hard. They don't expect, I think, things to just be given to them like a lot of the Western culture does. A lot of people in the West are kind of taught to try and hustle their way to the top rather than grind their way to the top. Whereas I think it's a real grind mentality over there from what I can see. So I'm not surprised in a way, but they're just producing so many quality players. It is kind of impressive to see.
Okay, and then if we move to I guess the questions of more. Well, let me preface my next set of questions with the fact that almost whatever Psyonix does, there's going to be a fairly vocal complaints corner. It's kind of the whatever happens. But there was a general expectation that there would be more major spots, or maybe fewer for North America and EU, maybe extra one for MENA, SSA. We were kind of hoping for one. And in your mind, what do you have in your mind a good answer to what should be done, given the fact that it is now global and we need to have more access for these outer regions?
Well, I've always been a believer in globalizing the esport through any RLCS LAN, I believe, in the long term, should have at least one team from any region that's participating present. So I am a believer that SSA should be at the majors. I think that should be happening. Now I'm not involved in that process. Like
Of
who
course.
decides? I don't decide like
Yeah.
what the budget allocation is. I don't decide, who's going to be in charge of format and all that stuff. I sometimes chat to some of the people involved in that process, but I don't decide that. So I can only speak to what I think should happen, and I think SSA should be at the majors 100%. I think MENA should have 2 teams at the majors 100%. I think like a lot of people have reacted to the season announcement, just having the exact same copy paste teams as last season. A lot of people have had questions, like you mentioned, why no SSA and why no MENA as second team. And a lot of people have speculated that it's because you can't do an event with 18 teams. It's just not a good number for a tournament, for an international tournament, which I disagree with, because I know plenty formats that work with 18 teams. You could do 4 groups, two groups of 4, 2 groups of 5, top 2 from each group go through to a single elim. You could do triple elimination, you could do double elimination. There's so many that work with 18 teams. It's not really an issue in my mind. So that can't be it. It must be something else. But a lot of other people have speculated that it needs to remain at 16, and they didn't want to take spots away from EU and NA. I think this is maybe a hot take, but if it has to be 16 teams, like if it cannot change, if 16 teams is the absolute limit, then I think the best course of action would be to take a spot away from North America and away from Europe, to give Middle East a second one, and to give Sub-Saharan Africa one. Now, I don't want to. I think 5 is a good number for EU and NA, and I think reducing it is a bad thing to do. I want to make it clear. I don't think that spots should be taken away from NA and EU, but I think NA and EU having 4 wouldn't be as bad of a situation as Middle East having 1 and Sub-Saharan Africa having none. I think those are the biggest crimes with the major spot allocations in my mind.
Well, I think it is a hot take, and I'm inclined to agree with you, but I kind of get the feeling there's already North Americans and Europeans lighting their torches and ready to take to the streets if that were to become a thing. And then at the London major, and it seems like in London all there is to do. I was expecting much more exciting parties in London, but it was like, okay, we're going to Weatherspoons. So one of the many nights in Weatherspoons, one of the discussions was around having a play-ins or a wild card type system for majors. So there's so I don't know if there's a good argument for that, or if that just makes majors a bit more logistically complicated.
I don't think that having a wildcard stage really makes sense to me, because if you've qualified, you've qualified. Like it doesn't make it easier. I think I've been theory crafting different formats with 18 teams, 20 teams, 24 teams, 16 teams. In no way does making a wildcard stage and then the winners of the wildcard go into the major itself. It doesn't it doesn't streamline the process at all. So you don't you don't make it more simple by having a wildcard stage. Definitely, I think it's easier to just have one event and have more than 16 teams in it. That's what I would do. But yeah, like I said before, I don't think I'm not involved in who decides, or I don't make the call on how many teams to invite. But I'm positive that there's no a lot. It's hard to be on the receiving end of that. I'm sure to wake up and see that Sub-Saharan Africa is not in the majors, and MENA to wake up and see that they still only have one spot. That's tough. That's bad news to wake up to. But there, I know for a fact it's not because Psyonix are let's make life difficult for these regions in particular. I'm sure it was a tough decision to make.
Well, I have an evolving view on this because we're in a peculiar situation. In all honesty, before the announcement of the first, the 2022, when was it? 21-22 season, Rocket League was on life support here. The big players like Snowy. Snowy was planning to move to England and go and play pool or something. He was looking to other avenues. As he said to me one day, he says, "I can't wait forever for this game." And similar to anybody who was like even reasonably good, there was really nowhere to go. There was nothing to play for, and we don't have a big player base. And once you got past Diamond, trying to get local games was almost impossible. You had to go to Europe.
Yeah.
So we've had things a little bit arse about face here, because the natural progression of things is you build up this passionate player base and a fan base for that player base, and then eventually the publishers and the people in charge of things go, wow, we gotta support this region. We've been gifted in many ways, because out of the blue, and Rocket League honestly is this region's best kept secret. Overnight, it became the highest paid esport in this region by some distance. With the little bit of prize pool we get from RLCS, it is bigger than anything else. So it's almost it's top down. So suddenly we've been given an opportunity to compete at Worlds, a fairly decent prize pool, and now we're scrambling because we don't have the player base. So while, yes, it was very tough to discover that we don't have a major, and the stream issue is another thing, and personally, I'm probably more upset about that than the major spot, But we do have a bit of work to do in terms of we got to grow this game. We need a lot more players, and that's going to help with skill. That helps with everything related to it. But I mean, having said that, I don't know if you have a thought in and around that.
It's an interesting one because like you mentioned, the player base is small, but it existed pre RLCS. There was a player base before, like, in Sub-Saharan Africa, before RLCS existed in Sub-Saharan Africa. So you would expect if RLCS continues to exist in the region that the player base will grow. I mean, you need time for young fans, in that region to grow up and become old enough to play and to put the time in to get good, in order for them to then go and actually play at pro level or get good enough to play at pro level. But I'm not really. There's some people who think that the only teams that should be at majors and the only teams that should be at Worlds are the best, the absolute, like, some people subscribe to the theory that or the idea that the World Championship should be the 24 best teams in the world, like just the absolute 24 best teams and no one else. And if a region can't produce a team that can be top 24 in the world, then they don't deserve to be in the World Championship. I don't really believe in that personally. I think that it's the World Championship for me should be the best teams from each region. That's why it's called a World Championship. And I feel like Sub-Saharan Africa, there's a player base there. There's a history there. There's a fan base there, and all that can grow only if the region is given land spots. I mean, money is fantastic. It's good to have the prize money, but the real reason people want to compete is, to do it online in front of a crowd. So I think that has to be a thing in order for it to grow.
I certainly agree. I think and you look at all the major sport codes, if there is a world championship, they have that. I mean, you go through qualifiers, and if you make it through your region's qualifiers, you go and part of the journey is to go to the world championships and get hammered by the best in the world, and you take your lessons from that and hopefully come back, in another couple of years better for it. So I think that is the better way to go. Okay, so I think we're going to start. We're sort of getting to the point where we can start getting questions from chat, which I know Gore has been dutifully collecting. All right, what have we got here? So, what does Johnnyboi think about the RL scene in East EU and German-speaking EU? Is Rocket League there growing like in the UK, France, Italy, etc.?
That's interesting. Germany's a very curious place for Rocket League. I'm surprised it's not bigger, because the Rocket League's obviously huge in France, huge in the UK. Even like the Netherlands is a smaller country, but there's been a lot of past and current pro players there. But yeah, compared to other esports, the German scene and the Scandinavia scene and the Eastern European scene is much smaller. Which it's curious, but I have to think it's just because the other games are more popular over there. I mean, some countries have a completely different esport dominating than another one. That's just because that's what all of the all the kids are playing when they're growing up. They're all playing a different game. So
Okay.
yeah, Rocket League just probably it must not be as common of a game for people to just go and play with their mates in Germany as it is in the UK and in France. I don't know about that, the actual numbers. I've never seen the numbers in the back end, but yeah, I think that Rocket League has. It's such an easy. I mean, it's such an easy game to understand that you know eventually there all you need is for there to be a player from X country to be good, and that's going to inspire more people from that country to give it a go.
It does make me think that there's like the role of content creation and champions. You know, if we go back to the very early days, sort of North America, we had Cronovi, who was an early content creator, a champion for the game.
Yeah.
And I think he did a lot. And then there's the work you've done, which has become more global, but I imagine began its life in the UK. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And then the impact you had with Mina, as we've already discussed. And I wonder how many are there the big sort of champions and or content creators out of that part of the world or any part of the world? And it's something I'm pushing locally. We need more to make the game interesting to other people.
Yeah, content creation is really important. I think it's underrated as an aspect for a lot of people because it always starts small. You know, unless you're just a really, really insanely good player, insanely good entertainer, your content's not going to be like huge from the get go. But yeah, you just got to try and find. I'd say like if pros or content creators in other regions want to grow their content and become more popular. The key is, I think, to make sure that it is enjoyable because if you're enjoying what you're doing, people are more likely to watch you do it because you're just going to naturally be happier and it'll be good vibes. And yeah, a lot of people grind content that they really don't enjoy just because they think it's going to get them more viewers, and really all it does is it makes them sad or makes them like it makes them hate content creation. So they'll go through like a phase of spamming out a bunch of content that they think is going to do well, and maybe it did do well, but they actually hated the whole process, and then they stopped doing it because they didn't enjoy it, and now they're back to square one of not doing it anymore. So I think it's the main thing is to find content that you enjoy making. If you enjoy making it, then it doesn't matter too much, or it doesn't matter as much if it does well, because yeah, you're enjoying the process.
All right, cool. And then from another question from Vox is, how do you predict the meta will change in the coming RLCS season? I don't know if that's such a broad question, but your thoughts.
Well, my hope is that teams will actually start having real kickoff strategies. It's a thing that I've become pretty well known for talking about. Yeah, I really hope that people get decent at kickoff strats because, yeah, the average pro team is pretty horrendous at them compared to other aspects of the game. So that's what I'm hoping for. I hope there's actually a kickoff meta and we start to see teams really think about it. But yeah, apart from that, the way that 3v3 is played, the pace of the game kind of limits like new moves really becoming popular. Compared to a game mode like 1v1 where you do see regularly like a new move will become possible. Like most recently, a player called Dark from Saudi Arabia has started pogoing extremely consistently in top 20 of ranked and against like some of the best players in the world. And you wouldn't see that in 3v3 because it's too slow.
Yeah.
To work in 3v3, but yeah, 1v1 there's a lot of meta developments like that. I kind of hope that threes sees something new, but I reckon when I think about what's fast, well, pinches are fast. I don't think that ceiling pinches and floor pinches have been developed anywhere near as much as wall pinches and team pinches. So those are two areas that players could get better at, and more flip resets is always an easy one to predict. So, like, what are we seeing now? Doubles, maybe triples, quads are going to become common, but yeah, 3v3 is a very fast-paced game. It's difficult for players to innovate new moves because it just moves so quickly.
Other than just being faster, quicker, and better at doing what you got to do once you get there. All right,
Yeah.
Question from Newer Lake, who he says, what does Johnny think of esports like Rocket League at traditional international sports events like the Commonwealth Games or the Olympics, given the long gaps between those events and the traditionally relatively short shelf life of most esports?
I like it. I mean, it's interesting. I think it makes sense. I love seeing the comments from all of the boomers complaining every time that they see something like that happening. Like, I think just for that alone, we need to keep those things happening because, yeah, we love those comments. They're great.
The more they're
So
complaining, the better we're doing. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's fun to see those comments, mainly the boomers complaining that their channel's been tarnished. So I like it. I love seeing Rocket League in those events. It gives a different kind of feel as well. I suppose like the Olympics was, or the IWO event was international teams, so different from, I guess, the club level, the org level for the RLCS is. So yeah, I like it personally. I'm all for it.
Okay. And then question from one of the OGs of the local scene here in South Africa, from Elf. And this is a proper question, and it's tough. For players from faraway regions like SSA and maybe OCE in their earlier days, playing with the exceptionally high ping, 150 plus, how do we, Mina had the option to play in Europe. We can play in Europe, but it sucks at 180 ping or so. How do we, is there a way, is it even possible for us to develop ourselves with a big enough player base?
Well, we've seen OCE have kind of proved that it is possible over the years, because they're completely isolated in terms of ping from the biggest servers, Europe and US East. So you can, and we saw the most development from OCE. Well, they've got a lot of teams in their own region to play against each other. That's one step, is you need to have more than one good team. But yeah, internationally, they saw the biggest improvement when there were lots of LAN events consecutively that they could go to and play against international competition. So yeah, the best way for other regions outside of Europe and NA to improve is if they can't play on the US East or European servers, or even US West server to a lesser degree, you need to try and have an active scrim or 6-man community in the top tier at the top tier level, or get to as many international events as possible. So one of those things is harder to do, because international events, you need to have a path to get there, which right now only is at the World Championship for SSA, so it's tough. But yeah, I really, really hope that in the future every international RLCS event will have an SSA team present. I think for me, it's a necessity in order for those events to be as hype as possible.
All right, and then from Red Flash, what do you think were some of the key? I think we might have covered some of this, but I think good to revisit. So, what do you think were some of the key actions Mina took to make Rocket League popular, and that resulted in the new players getting in, and resulting in new players getting into the game?
Well, I know Mina in Saudi Arabia specifically they have a lot of regional LANs and regional tournaments. So that's important, is to try and do as much as you can in your own region. I know that the Sandrock Gaming guys and the OGs of the region, they haven't just tried to have a cool boys club that they play against themselves and no one else, and they try and stay the best in the region. They really try. It's important for the best team to try and help the other teams improve and to help all the other players improve. That's why I think communities like France have produced so many good players over the years, and the UK more recently has started to produce a lot of good players, is because they play with each other, they help each other get better. So there's two things. One, super teams. You need a super team if you're going to compete internationally with a smaller player base, and then number two, that super team's got to be part of the regional community to help the rest of the region catch up and improve.
All right. Well, I'm hoping we have a super team now in theory, with the old Orlando Pirates team and a bit of bravado with Snowy, Darth, and To Die For. So hopefully one or more of them are in chat and listening to that. I mean, so that they do have the weight of responsibility to some extent on their shoulders, and we're certainly going to be leaning on them and counting on them to play that role, and with all the support we can muster for them, of course.
Especially young talent. One of the things that I think Europe did a lot better than North America was developing young talent. Signing young talent to existing top tier rosters. Look at teams like Dignitas. They did that several times over the years. The OG Dignitas picked up lots of unproven but talented young players And yeah, now this season is again, it's continued happening. But I think NA this season started doing a bit more of that as well.
Mm.
The young talent is the talent is going to improve the most quickly. And yeah, you're probably going to eventually have an insane player pop up who's just going to go to levels that the OGs have never gone to, because it's much easier as a young player to learn quickly and to then surpass their elders. So yeah, growing young talent is the way. Trying to identify them early and help them grind, help them improve.
Okay. Then question from Jay is, what steps should SSA region take in order to try get... Oh, okay. This is not a question you can answer. He's asking about us getting an official RLCS stream, which I'm not even going to pose to you. It's not a question you can deal with in any way.
Yeah, it's an interest. I don't know. But I don't know what the well, I do know. I remember hearing that before, like when these streams last season all came out, like the OCE stream for RLCS and the Middle East stream. Like I think that, like, obviously from a production standpoint, the difficulty with running those streams is you need to have, a point of contact. I mean, last season it was on a different channel for SSA. Like the
yeah,
or
we had sort of a variety of production companies take it off, and they would do it on their own Twitch channels.
Yeah, so I think if there was like a clear, like very consistent team who kind of do it every week. Like, I know Nish over in APAC has been running a lot of event. He did like what are they called, the APL, Asian Pro League, way back in the day. And then it just having a consistent presence in a region is the way to do it. I mean, the first region that got into RLCS outside of NA and EU was OCE, and they had very consistent weekly TOs. So Psyonix were looking at that region and thinking, who are we going to get to run our events over there? It would be one of the very consistent regional TOs. And same with South America, they had Rocket Street, I think it was. They were doing everything very consistently. So Middle East, yeah, you've got a very consistent team over there, and yeah, Nish's team in APAC. So there just needs to get a regional stream. Like I said earlier, I'm not involved in that process, but looking at how it's been done in the past, that's how how I've seen it happen. Is having a consistent broadcast team and a consistent point of contact. That makes it the easiest for a TO like Psyonix.
Well, that was not an answer I was expecting, and not one that we've particularly thought of, because, yeah, I mean, the guys who did it last year, it was initially an American outfit, and then we had Dream Team Productions based in the UK who did a stellar job, but yeah, they weren't here in local. So that's and that
even if there's just like a small weekly like tournament like that consistently runs with all the top teams in the region, with a good production quality and stuff like that. That would, I mean, that's what I would look for if I was in Psyonix shoes. I'm only guessing because I don't make these calls, but if I was in their shoes, that's what I would be looking for, to try and figure out who's gonna run the show over there.
Fair enough. All right, question from Cyberlinks. Do you think that prize pool is parallel with the quality of the region? So if our prize pool gets increased, will we produce better players and teams?
I think it's attached. If it's more viable to be a professional player, then more people are going to try it, and therefore more like people who have a natural talent for the game will be discovered. But I don't know. I mean, there's obviously a point where the returns stop matching the investment, or you'd expect there to be a point where the returns stop matching the investment. Otherwise, prize pool, like, every time you put more prize pool into the scene, oh, look at that, now players are even better than before. There's got to be a point where that doesn't continue to work. So yeah, I kind of I mean, SSA's prize pool increased this season, I believe, didn't it?
Yes, it did. I think we went from $4,500 to $6,000 per regional, which is definitely an up.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think that's probably a good like thing to now compare. Just see, okay, what does that do? What does increasing the prize pool do for SSA? We'll have to wait and see, I guess, because you can't know until it actually happens, until you've had a prize pool like change and see what does that do to the scene. What does it do to the amount of orgs over there, the amount of players who are full time, the quality of the gameplay. Yeah, you never really know until you change it. So yeah, it has changed now. So I guess we're just gonna have to see what happens.
All right, cool. Then from Snowy, SSA or APAC, who's better, has the most potential?
I think right now you'd have to say APAC's better because they've got like the virtuoso Kami imports. So yeah, imported talent is obviously a way to improve a region. I mean, NA sucked and then Turbo joined them, and now they won Worlds. So that's like the most obvious example. But now jokes aside, yeah, I think that they're probably that super team will help the region improve. You'd expect, and help the other teams in the region get better because they're playing against players like Kami and Vert, yeah, the merging of two regions that were pretty, I'd say, competitive. Yeah, yeah. I think right now you'd have to say APAC is likely to be the better one of the two. Potential wise, I guess you'd have to go APAC as well because the population, because they've got the biggest population in the world. So in a way, they've got the most potential out of anyone. But I think it's possible for any region to have a world-class team. It's just where there's population, where there's a player base, it's more likely. But I think it's possible for any, a team to be world-class coming from anywhere. It is possible.
Okay. And then, would you consider hosting SSA show matches?
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Okay.
The only difficult thing for SSA, for any non-NA or EU, Middle East or SAM show match, even OCE is a difficult one for this as well, is that if you don't have one player who's already proven in the match, then you don't know what the match really means. When Snowy came over to Europe and played against Jorias, that match means something because everybody knows how good Jorias is. Yes. But if I just hosted a match, Snowy versus another good player in SSA, no one would have any idea, okay, what level is this match at? Because you don't have a known entity in there. So I do the same thing whenever I have new players playing. I try and put them against a player that everybody knows about. It's very rare that you'll have a double debut show match. Because then it's harder to really gauge what does that mean. What does this result mean in the context of these two players? So that's the tough part. Is I love featuring players from all around the world, but SSA, OCE, Asia, they're so far away that it's hard to get those matches against EU, NA players or South American, Middle East players because they're now proven as well internationally. Unless you're on a LAN, it's tough to make those matches happen.
All right, and then oh gosh, I had a question, and it's so one of the things I'm pushing is I would like anyone who wants to take Rocket League seriously, I think needs to go to one of the majors. They might as well go to the full one in Rotterdam, just to get a sense of how big the game is. I think there's a change of perspective when you experience watching Rocket League with 5, 6, 7,000 people all losing their minds and seeing the players on stage. So perhaps if we had a couple of our pros going out there in and around the major, we could try and squeeze something in against some other talent. Don't know if that's even possible, but maybe there's opportunities there.
Oh, definitely. I managed to sneak in, I think, 4 show matches last time I was at LAN or at the World Championship because there were stream setups there. So I'm definitely going to be pushing for there to be stream setups at the next one as well, so that can continue. So more show matches can be hosted. But yeah, the short answer is 100%. I'm always interested in seeing cross-region ones matches at LAN events. Okay. So it's always super cool to see.
All right, good. Well, I'll see what I can do from this end to see if we can set something up there. Okay, I'm going to ask you 2 more questions, and then we're going to wrap it up. The first is around, as I think I was chatting to you briefly before we went live about, I had no experience about esport at all coming into this, getting involved with Rocket League, and I'm slowly, and in the last year I've learned more about it than I've ever known, just because I've sort of been in much closer proximity to it, and one of the big issues is the relationship between orgs, players, teams, it seems to be fraught with. They can be very fragile, very tense. Some work, many don't. But the question for you is, what should the approach be around from an org taking on a roster? Because I get the sense here it's all about how can we make money out of this team rather than something a longer term vision. So it's a broadish question, but your thoughts around that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, there are good orgs and bad orgs. I remember recently when I think Nolly tweeted out that he wants franchising in Rocket League because it would make more stability, so players wouldn't screw each other over by kicking the third that they don't like. And then very shortly after that, there was like a big, I can't even remember what it was, but maybe someone in chat remembers the big org thing that what happened though is just like very clear that okay, good thing that org didn't have more power because they've gone and shafted their whole team. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, orgs obviously have to try and make it financially viable. I think probably the best way to do that is through content because content is always going to make more money than pro play for at the very top, unless you're one of the insanely big pro players in another esport. Content always makes more money. So I think a content first focus from orgs is the way to go. But then you've got, of course, got to find the balance of like not overdoing content to then take away from the drive or the time that your pro team has. So yeah, that's the tough balance to strike. So how do you maximize content without limiting what the team and the players can do professionally?
It is a tough question, that, because I got the sense if we take someone who's very good with content and who I think is a fantastic player and should have done better is apparently Jack, and but big and I don't know if you feel his content, he was distracted by his own content or not, if that was a factor or if it was just tension in the team.
I don't know. Yeah, the Jack situation, I'm not sure what what was going on behind the scenes there, but yeah, he's a good example of a player who's found a good way to get consistent content while also, being a world-class player. He's not had the results recently to show for, but I know he's still got the potential. I look forward to seeing what his team can do this weekend. But yeah, it's all about finding a niche for content, doing something that isn't being done better than anyone else is doing it, or just doing something that is being done but to a higher level. Just trying to get your finger in the pulse of what do the community want, what do they want, and out of pro players, it's usually just like more personality because we get plenty of chances to see them on the pitch, but not many chances to see them off the pitch.
Yeah, and if I could advocate for anything for our super team is that they start producing content and make them, when you feel connected when you can follow them on Twitch and see what they're doing and interact with them, and as fantastic as they are on the pitch, we don't sort of get to see the other side of them, which would be fabulous if they were streaming and content. So Snowy Darth to die for, words for you from me. And then my last question, Johnny, is: are you able to access anything from $5,000 to $50,000 that we can use to fund a stream? No, I'm just.
I wish I was. That would be nice.
It would be fabulous. Johnnyboi live on stream funds the entire stream. Yeah, okay, fine. All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up. I've certainly found it to be very enlightening. And we're just trying to learn as many lessons as we can. We want to. So many things have been done. So many lessons have been learnt around the world. And if we can learn, avoid the massive pitfalls and short circuit the process as much as possible, perhaps we become seriously competitive in a season or two rather than 3, 4, or 5 seasons. I'm getting on, and before I move off completely, I'd love to see an SSA team competing seriously at a World Champs.
Yeah, it's all about, I think right now for SSA. Okay, didn't get the stream. That sucks. I wish there was a stream. But that means that there's a vacuum. There's a gap there in the ecosystem that can be filled. So I think production value is clearly something that's important. So being able to churn out and consistently produce a decent quality regular stream, that would be, I think, the best thing to see. Whether there's like a weekly tournament or something to that effect in SSA, that shows, hey, look at us, we're doing this ourselves. We're a region who can do our own. We can run our own show, and it all looks the part and sounds the part. That would be the way, I think, to show psionics. And like I'm purely speculating here. I want to keep making this clear. I don't know why there is no SSA stream, but as a tournament organizer, if I'm looking at partners to work with on a streaming front, I would look at, okay, what have they done before, and can they do it again consistently? That's what I'd like to see. I mean, community tournaments are always in higher demand, so yeah, it doesn't need to be a massive prize pool, doesn't need to be the sickest production quality, it just has to be consistent and quality, and have the interest, have the community in SSA behind it. That would be awesome to see.
Okay, very valid point, and honestly, not one that I had immediately thought of as a factor. And as you say, it may or may not be the factor, but even if it isn't, that's a good
even
thing
if it's
to
not,
have.
yeah, exactly. That's why I bring it up. Is I think it would be a cool thing to see. It would be a cool thing to have, regardless.
All right, well, there we go, Johnnyboi. You've donated very generously an hour of your time. I appreciate it very much. And so from myself and the band of SSAs who are trying to do something in the world, thank you very much for taking the time. It is massively appreciated.
Thanks for having me on. I'm glad to give any advice I can and to answer any questions I can. My vision, my long-term vision of Rocket League esports is one that includes every region at the highest level, and you don't get that without supporting every region. And so I try and do that in any way that I can.
And that's fabulous, and you've done that marvelously. And well, there you go, Johnnyboi. Thank you very much, and I will now let you go.
Thank you. All right, guys, have a good one.
Thank you very much, man. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Well, there we go, Johnny. That was I enjoyed that very much. I think a lot to think about. This is going to be a rare time where I actually go back and watch my own VOD, because I think I get a little distracted with the production, the technicalities of things, and I might have missed a bunch of things he said. So I definitely want to kind of review it and see. And take what lessons I can from it. And then there were a bunch of people who followed during the course of the stream, and I want to quickly shout them out. And thank you to Dragetta for keeping track of all the people that did. So the followers were Newer Lake, Abdullah, Cheddar TV, Alexander the OK, the Killer Goose, It's Me Ski, Anagami Spot, John, a.k.a. Always, Tigers Vance, who I did briefly see in chat, is a 50-year-old hardcore Rocket League player, so that's awesome. And then Dad Vibes Gaming, thank you very much for following. Welcome aboard, welcome to the party. And then a bunch of subs from Chutney Chops, Jay, Case Quaster, Uncle Salty, Hugo, Nobody, Taylor Prime, Delaware, Eli Kim, and Happy Meal, our new Orlando Pirates team. Thank you all very, very much. And there's so much I need to go and digest from. Oh, and a new one, Bluck74. Thank you very much for the follow. Welcome aboard. A lot to go and digest, to go and think about, and see how we move forward. But once again, let me emphasize, we are on the road. We're not getting everything we want. It's not being as easy as we hoped it would be. It's going to continue to be tough, but we got to keep fighting. We got to keep doing what we're doing. Whether you're a player looking to be pro, well, do a better job at it. Become a better pro. If you're not in content creation and would like to, now's the time to start. If you're already doing content, do it better. Do it more frequently. Build those platforms. Let's all do more of what we're doing. So I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up. I'd like to go, I believe Jota is live. I've just been informed by Gore in Discord. So if I've got her here, and she is, I would like us all to go and say hello to Jota, and give her a big fat hello from Greybeard. DeFritos, Greybeard, awesome stream, man. Caught only the last few minutes. Oh, okay, good. Awesome stuff, Fritos. So you can go back and watch the VOD. But to everybody who came to hang, thank you very much. I hope it was as enjoyable for you as it has been for me. So more to think about, and let's do more of this. There's so much we can go and do, and let's just go and do it and have a blast doing it. So in the meantime, I'm going to say goodbye, and we're going to go say hello to Jota. From me, Greybeard, peace! I'm out.